take you on a tour of the east end of Maysville. Back in the 1970s when I was a kid. Talk about the days of Beechwood Park, talk about the days of playing tennis and games with the other kids in the neighborhood. And yes, this is before the days of the internet. Hi, welcome to Maysville, Kentucky, Simple Living. So if you like what you see, don't forget to hit that little subscribe button right down in the corner, and I'll bring you more of small town living. Yes, Maysville, Kentucky, Simple Living. And this is the house that I grew up in, which was built in 1954 by my father, just after that flood wall was finished. One of the favorite games we used to do down here as a kid was play hide and seek on this block. 7 or 8 of us would get together and hide under cars and so forth. And this pole was the base. And one of the favorite places I used to hide was Bob Hutchison used to have a brickyard right over here where he'd chip bricks and sell them and so forth. And us boys would always hide down in the bricks because we knew that the girls wouldn't come over there looking for us. On the far east end of town, about where 405 to 406 Beechwood is now, was a double-story white house owned by the Dietrich family. Their son Billy and I used to get together and play over on the riverbanks on the other side of the flood wall as kids. But right over here, where all these trees are standing at the moment, was the Dietrich greenhouses. The Dietrich greenhouses supplied the florist shop that they owned down on Market Street downtown. But when we were kids, as 11-year-olds, Billy and I used to run up and down the aisles of the greenhouses, as you see here, picking up flowers off the ground and getting into all kinds of mischiefs. Oh man, those are some great memories of the east end of town. Behind me here on Broadway Street, just a mere 3 blocks from where I grew up, was the 6th Ward School. Our first grade teacher was Miss Beulah Crawford. Miss Ruth Robertson was the 2nd grade teacher. Mrs. Randolph, I can't remember her first name, was my 3rd grade teacher. And the 4th grade teacher was Miss Retta Bauer. Now obviously now the school is gone, but I'll see if I can get a picture of it show up right now. Now you have an idea what the school looks like in this drawing. One of the coolest things that I can remember from the school is when we were in the 4th grade, the school allowed us to be what we call patrol boy. And we just wore a little yellow sash like a traffic cop would wear. And we carried a stop sign on a handle. And we'd stop in the middle of every intersection between here and Main Street and allow the kids to cross safely without getting hit by cars. Our reward is at the end of the season, we got to go to a Cincinnati Reds ball game. And I remember going to the last year of Crosley Field when it was open, and the Cincinnati Reds were playing the San Diego Padres. Sadly, I can't remember who won the game though. World War II General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who also was an American president during the 1950s, passed away in the spring of 1969. When the school found out when the funeral train was coming right through town here, all 4 grades were allowed to come out here on this playground on the side of the school and watch the train go by. I can still remember that train coming through town that year. Oh, Beechwood Park. I can remember a lot of time spent at this place back in the 70s. Especially playing with the hundreds of other kids that would show up when the Pickles would bring the West End kids over here to the park. We could play horseshoes, basketball, and all kinds of other fun stuff. Let's go reminisce together about what this place was like back in the 70s. But there was a building used to sit between that basketball goal and those bleachers and the little grass strip over there. They would loan us the tennis rackets and the balls, get out the horseshoes, the kickballs and basketballs, and all the toys that we got to play with at the time. But the special treat was at 11 o'clock every morning through the week. They'd open that little building up there, and we all got a little pint of chocolate milk. I believe it was from Cloverleaf Dairy, don't hold me to that. And a couple of little cookies. Man, that was a real treat as a 10-year-old. We thought that was just too cool. Several evenings during the week, I can remember Bob Wilcox, Gary Valentine, and Les Curtis, and I think Greg Haggard was the fourth one. Those four fellows would come over here and play about 7:30 evening till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Man, those guys were good. They could really play tennis. But about 5 minutes before it's time to go, Mr. Chenault, who lived right behind that little blue building over there, would come out and kind of let everybody know that just a couple of minutes when he gets back to the panel box, that the lights are going off and he's going to bed. So everybody will kind of quit right then and gather up their tennis balls and t-shirts and whatever they had with them, because when he got back to the panel box, lights out. This place was really dark then. But they built this wall so we could actually do a little practice on. And I can even remember an evening or so when Gary Valentine took a few minutes to help this little 11 or 12-year-old boy out to show him how to grip the racket in order to be able to get the ball across the net and not over the fence. These monkey bars are still here. Funny how I can reach them a little better now than I could then. Oh, I can't do that anymore. We used to swing across these things from one end to the other without hitting the ground. And one of the coolest things we would do is this. As a 12-year-old, we would love to sit up here and watch the horseshoe games that would go on right behind us, because there's always a battle between the East End kids on one end and the West End kids on the other. See who could throw the most ringers to win the most horseshoe games. See this concrete slab? This is where a Beechwood Park favorite happened. Box hockey. Most of you that come to Beechwood Park back in the 70s and 80s will remember a little bit of box hockey. And the tournaments were fierce when it comes to winning these games. Right on this slab. One of the coolest things that we used to play on was a thing called the witch's hats. Those of you that came to Beechwood knows exactly the thing I'm talking about. It stood about right here. It had a pole that ran through the center, and it had chains coming down to a circular set of pipes about this high off the ground. When you spin it around on that from that pole, you can hang on to it and you can actually fly in the air 5 to 6 feet off the ground if you had big kids on the other end of it. That's kind of cool, but when you fell off, you sure got a lot of scraped knees and scraped elbows flying on that thing. Although this merry-go-round wasn't here at the time I used to be here, back in the 70s, the last day of the season before we all had to go back to school after Labor Day weekend, the organizers would hold what we called the treasure hunt. And what they would simply do is they brought probably, I'm going to guess, I don't even remember, it's 50 years ago now, 50 bucks worth of quarters and dimes, nickels, and they would just lay them here on the playground pieces. They would lay them in the seats of the swing sets, on the corners of the tennis courts, pretty much anywhere where it's easy to find the change. And they would turn us loose, and if you were fast getting up here and you were good, you might get a couple dollars worth of change out of there, which for a 10-year-old kid 50 years ago, that was a lot of money. During the summertime when Beechwood Park was always so busy, I'd use Browning's wall for practice. Beechwood Park from the 1970s. A cool place for a kid that was 10 years old to run around that just lived 2 blocks west of here. But the park is actually a lot older than that. In the 1900s, used to be a big sandbar on the Ohio River that was a cool place for the folks of the day to come and swim in the river and have a little beach time. That all ended with the building of that nice big flood bar over there in the 1950s in response to the devastating 1937 flood that really ruined this town at that time. So Beechwood Park now is just resorted to right on top of this little small hill here, which is fine with us kids because we had plenty of swings and horseshoes and tennis and so forth to play with. Thanks for watching Reminiscing from the 1970s. We'll catch you next time.